Father in heaven, we just want to hear your voice today. We want you to help us to make the things that we read in the Bible practical in our everyday lives. In Jesus' name, amen. I would like to give a shout out today to some of my crazy siblings that are watching on Zoom. So hello to you. I'm sure they're going to make fun of me after because, that's what crazy siblings do. We're going to talk about abundant living today, and I'm going to share some principles with you that I hope become really practical in your everyday life. Have you ever had this experience where you were running out of gas with your car, and your car was like on E, and you still had several miles to get to the gas station, so you do this like the crazy car dance, wiggling your car back and forth? How many of you ever did that? Aha! So I've done that before where you didn't think ahead, for whatever reason, you didn't notice or whatever, and you do that crazy car dance to get to the gas station. Did you know that car manufacturers actually put something into your car? It's called moron insurance. So that when the gas gauge is as low as it goes, there's still gas in the tank, because they knew that some of us wouldn't fill the tank, right? So, but pretend that you didn't hear that, because you don't really want to know it, right? You want to make sure that you get gas. So today I'm going to talk about some biblical principles of how not to run out of gas. What happens in our daily life sometimes is the things that we really want to do or need to do, we don't have enough internal gas to get those things done. So I want to talk about how to keep your tank full in a personal way. Basically, we're taking prepping principles. I teach emergency prepping classes. Basically, I want to take prepping principles and apply them into our everyday living. So it's not that you need a huge backpack on your shoulders with everything that you're ever going to need in your life. What you need for this day only are the things that you need for this day, right? And even Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. You don't need to have everything that you're going to need tomorrow. What you need is what you need for today. So Bob and I just recently went on a backpacking trip, and we didn't carry everything we needed for the rest of our life. We just carried what we needed for a week. So I'm going to take those same kind of principles and bring them into our everyday life. Oftentimes, we don't do some of the things that we could do or should do because we play the victim card. Do you know what the victim card is? It's like the martyr mentality. Like, I can never do everything that I need to do. Like, I'm the victim of life and circumstances. And because, I can't do this thing, then I can't do that thing. And, I'd really like to help you, but I have to, toothbrush clean that little circle inside of my toilet today, so I can't really do it. It's that victim card, that martyr mentality. I really should do this. I really want to do it, but I just can't do it, right? We play the victim, and oftentimes we're the victim of ourselves. We're our own worst enemy. So Jesus actually preached a sermon, one of his first sermons that he ever preached, and you can open your Bible to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew 5 through 7, some people call it the Sermon on the Mount. It was Jesus' first sermon that he preached, and he set down in this sermon some practical principles to help his followers live the abundant life. And this chapter is all about how to be happy. And we spend a big chunk of our lives not happy. Have you ever noticed that? Do you spend more time just talking about how happy you are, or do you spend more time talking about how miserable you are? I mean, just listen to some of your family and friends in conversations. Do we talk more about our joys or do we talk more about our sorrows? If you watch the news, is it more about the happy things in the world or is it more about all the sad, horrible things in the world? So Jesus told this sermon because he wanted his people to have a certain mindset and keep their thoughts in a certain train of thoughts that would lead to happiness. So if you look at Matthew chapter 5 through 7, Jesus talks about you'll be happy if you do this. You'll be happy if you do that. You're the salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. He talked about principles and I've studied and dissected these 3 chapters, 5, 6, and 7. He talked about principles to live by. He talked about relating to the enemy. He talked about relating to God. He talked about attitudes that we have towards life, attitudes that we have towards others, then again relating to your enemy, again relating to God. And he's repeating loops. And then in the end of that, he says, pray and don't worry. So I've kind of dissected these 3 chapters and come up with some core values that he was trying to teach us. He was trying to teach his disciples then, and I believe he's trying to teach these things to us now. A core value is a fundamental belief that drives your behavior. For example, if I have a fundamental core belief that life is meaningless, then how am I going to live my life? Right? If I have a fundamental core belief that there is a purpose to life, then that's going to drive the way I live my life. Our core principles, our core values drive what we do. And if we can get these 4 core values that I'm going to talk about today from Matthew 5 through 7 into our life, then we can have the abundant life that Jesus wants us to have. These 4 values that I see in Matthew 5 through 7 are purpose, passion, power, and productivity. So purpose is your mental attitude, your mind, what's going on in your head. And sometimes there's strange stories in our head, right? And those strange stories drive us down a path that we probably really don't want to go down. The passions in our life are the people relationships that we have, the things that we love to do. These are our passions. The power is the physical energy and abilities that we have, the energy that we have to do our purpose, to do our passion. And the productivity in the Bible means that we're adding value. You know, it's not that we're reaching a financial goal and all those things. It's really, the bottom line is, how are we adding value to life? We're all here for a reason, and that reason is not just about ourselves. That reason is to add value to life. So you're a person, you might be young, you might be old, it doesn't matter. You have a body, you have a mind, you have relationships, and you have stuff to do. We're all the same. We're all a person with a body, with a mind, with relationships and stuff to do. We're not all the same. We don't all have the same stuff to do. We don't all have the same body. We don't all have the same mind. We're all different, and it's a beautiful difference that we have. But you know that the things that we do or could do are sometimes not what we want to do or should do, right? So that verse in Romans chapter 7, the things that I want to do, I don't do, and the things that I don't want to do, I do. The reason that happens is because we're not being driven by these core values. So how can we get the most value out of the time that we have here? How can we do the most or be the best that we can be while we're here on earth? Because the older you get, the shorter you realize life is, right? This past week, somebody said, I went to sleep and I woke up and I was 85. And it kind of seems like that, doesn't it? Like life just goes so fast. So how can we make the most of today? because really this is the day that we have. So to be purposeful is to be intentional in your mind. So what are you filling your mind with? What are the principles, the knowledge, the thoughts that are in your head that are driving your actions? We can waste a lot of energy on garbage in our brains, right? Garbage thinking. And then if we're wasting our energy on garbage thinking, we don't have any more mental energy for the right kind of thinking. What are you passionate about? Who's important in your life? How much energy do you have left at the end of the day to do the things or be with the people that are the most important to you? And how much power do you really have? How much energy do you have? Do you feel like you're just like driving that car in the car dance because you don't have enough gas to get through the day? And really, what are the most important things that you should be doing now? It always changes, doesn't it? I mean, the things that are important that I do right now are different than the things I did last year, right? Those kind of things are changing all the time. And so we need to understand what is most important right now that I should be doing. There's a lot of things that we could be doing, but what should we be doing? So let's say that your life is like a pizza. You like pizza? So let's say you get up in the morning and you have a full pizza. And that pizza represents all your mental, emotional, and physical energy. So you start with a full pizza. God promised in Isaiah 50 that every morning when you wake up, you have a full pizza. You're going to spend it through the day. But when you wake up in the morning, God renews your strength morning by morning. So when you woke up this morning, you woke up with a full pizza. Now you give pieces of that pizza away during the day. And actually, you could spend 2 or 3 pieces of that pizza before you ever get out of bed in the morning by hashing over all the garbage from the day before. Right? And you're wasting pieces of your pizza, or you're wasting pieces of your pizza on things that happened 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And you're burning up your pizza today on that stuff that you can't fix or change that happened all those years ago. So sometimes we give so many pieces of our pizza away in the wrong area when the things come up from our core values that we need to do. We don't have any energy left to do those things that are really the most important things to do. But we can learn and recognize when we're giving our pizza to the wrong place. We can learn to do that. Some of the places where we're spending pieces of our pizza, our mental and physical energy is not forgiving. You don't even need the other person to be a forgiver, right? You don't need that other person to say they're sorry or admit they did anything wrong. You don't need that other person at all to forgive the person. The longer you go on generating energy in unforgiveness, you're burning the pizza. You're not going to have energy then for the people that are in your life right now because, oh my word, Bill did that 10 years ago and I just can't forgive him. And so all my energy is going to Bill. And so you're sitting right here and I'm not even thinking about you, right? Because all my energy is going to the past. Holding grudges means that you're plotting evil in your mind towards something or someone. Burning your pizza in the wrong direction. Judging. Of course, we think we know, like Bob and I are married. I think I know why he did what he did, right? We know, right? But we think we know, but we don't really know. And so judging is burning energy on things that you don't even know. You think you know, but you don't know. And you know what I'm talking about. Worry is worrying about the past, the present, or the future, and using mental energy for things that you have no control over. Worry is burning energy for things that you cannot fix, because if you could, you would, right? You would totally fix it, but you can't. What do we worry about the most? People, the people that we're closest to, right? Our family, our children, our grandchildren, our parents. That's mostly what we worry about, and mostly because of free will, we can't do anything about it, right? We can't do a thing about it, but it's burning our mental energy. Contempt is when you think someone is totally worthless. Now, have you ever thought that somebody is totally worthless? Like beyond the reach of God? I mean, sometimes we have those feelings, like this person has done such a terrible thing that we think they're just totally worthless. We don't want to, put one speck of thought or energy into them, but in actually having the contempt, we're putting thought and energy into them, right? And then hatred, we all know what hatred is. These things Jesus put into the Sermon on the Mount to his followers because he knew that none of us are immune to these things. And he wanted us to understand that we're burning our pizza in these areas, and then we're not going to have the pizza for the relationships that we really want to have. We really need to fill our mind with something good. A reporter recently went through the streets of New York. I don't know if you saw this on the news, but he asked people, held the microphone in front of their face and said, "What have you read lately?" Did you see this on the news a couple weeks ago? What have you read lately? And people said, I read a book in 7th grade. These are adults. They said, I read the menu at McDonald's. Or they couldn't think of anything, or they said Facebook. Facebook is not the source of truth, people, right? It's not the source of truth. Whatever you read on Facebook, you should trace it back to its origin, right? Be the hound dog and follow the blood trail to find out if that thing that you read is really true. Basically, our brains are not being filled with what is good if we're not reading and finding out things for ourselves. We've become a generation of non-critical thinkers. And what Jesus is saying in Matthew 5-7 is you need to be a critical thinker. You need to figure this out and study it for yourself. So read, listen, and learn. When is the last time you actually learned something new? Learn something new. As Christians, we can get sort of in this rut where we only put our brain in one train of thought, right? If you think about Daniel, he studied all the knowledge and the wisdom of Babylon, which made him a wiser person. When is the last time you studied something about psychology or science or nature? Learn a new tree, learn a new bug, learn a new flower, learn a new language, learn something, because our brain is like a muscle. And Jesus said, if you want to be happy, you need to exercise your brain and be a critical thinker and read. We as Americans spend so much time watching TV. TV is passive. It's not a learning experience. It's passive. Unless what you see on the TV, then you go and do some research and study it out and see if it's true, right? It's passive. So we need to expand our thinking and read more, listen more, and learn, and do that ourselves. Jesus actually told a parable about the weeds and the good plants. Like, you don't have to plant weeds, do you? I mean, you plant some tomato plants or green beans or beets or carrots, and you plant those. You've cleaned the whole garden out, and it's just dirt. And what happens? What happens, Jeanette? The weeds just grow naturally. Jesus said, unless you're intentional about putting the good plants in and nurturing the good plants, the weeds would overtake the garden. It's the garden of our mind. Unless we're intentional about how we spend our pizza, we are going to naturally spend it on the weeds. And we need to think about that and be more conscious of it and fill our mind with good things. We were told a long time ago that what we really needed to understand was the true force of the will. Ellen White said that long time ago. If we understood the true force of the will, that our lives would be much different. And that word force there means energy. And there has been new research on willpower. So we play the victim card here. Like, I would have done it, but I just have such low willpower. I have such weak willpower. You have strong willpower. You can do it, but I have weak willpower, and I can't do it, right? We play the victim card. But now there's new research on willpower, and willpower is like your gas tank. Willpower can be strong. You wake up in the morning with a full pizza of willpower, and as you go through the day, your willpower is burned up, and the gas gauge on your willpower goes down. So you can wake up in the morning and you can say, I am totally going to work out today. I'm going to work out. I'm going to exercise like nobody ever exercised on the face of the earth. I'm going to be sweaty and I'm going to use every muscle, right? You have great willpower, and you're going to do that after work, right? So you feed your family breakfast, and there's all kinds of drama, and there goes pieces of your pizza, right? You get to work, and all these things are demanded of you at work, pizza, 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 and you get out of work, now your willpower tank is empty. You think you're going to work out? You're not going to choose to work out then, because your willpower is low. And they have discovered that if you recognize that your willpower is low, you can do things to raise the willpower tank. You can actually bring the tank up and fill it up. And the things that you can do are things that we already know. Pray, sing, meditate, go for a walk, just sit and breathe. At my job on Monday mornings, we have breathing exercises. It's wonderful. Just breathing. Just take a second right now and just close your eyes and just take a deep breath. Something as simple, something as inexpensive as just stopping and consciously taking a deep breath, the willpower meter just goes up. And if you got out of work and you intended to exercise and your willpower is low and that donut shop is looking pretty good, right? If you just stop the car and just breathe for a second, maybe listen to a song and breathe and pray to God, all of a sudden your willpower is going to be recharged, and you'll be able to do that core value of what you really wanted to do. Doesn't that make sense? But so often, we just don't recognize that we have low willpower. We just had this heated, pandemonium discussion with somebody, and then we turn around and our willpower has just been spent. And at that moment, we're going to default to whatever we were trained to do. right? If you were trained to, if you have a hairy situation, stressful situation, and you were trained to punch the wall after that, Jeanette was mean to me, I'm just going to go over here and punch the wall. If that's what you learned, if your willpower is spent, what are you going to do? You're going to punch the wall, right? If your willpower is stronger and you take that minute to breathe or do something to replenish your willpower, you're not going to go punch the wall and break your hand, because that's not really the best thing to do, right? So God is talking to us about living this abundant life and living with purpose, living with passion, and living with power. And when you talk about living with passion, when you read the Bible is full of stories about real people. They're not fake people, they're real people. They're happy people, sexy people, playful people, sad people, angry people, depressed people, enslaved people, addicted people, fretful, vengeful, right? Ornery, crabby, mean, sweet, kind, nice, all kinds of people. What we find in this book and what Jesus is talking about in Matthew 5-7 is being authentic, just being who we are, just being our real selves. I was in Salt Lake City last week for work. And, you did pray for us to come here, and we couldn't come because of my job. And you prayed so hard, I got a new job. And because of my new job, I can't be here sometimes. But I love my new job, and thank you for praying for me, because I absolutely love my new job. And I was at my job in Utah this past week, and a lady said to me, a coworker, she said, "You're a pastor's wife?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, you don't seem like a pastor's wife." And I'm like, "Thank you very much." Because we have certain stereotypes of how we're supposed to be, not just pastors' wives, but anybody, right? But you can't be what somebody thinks you're supposed to be. You need to be who God made you to be, right? And that's being authentic, who you are, who you really are, being authentic. We need to think about being inspired. And when's the last time you had a blissful moment? Living with passion means you have blissful moments. If you look up the word blissful in all of our writings, I challenge you to do it. Look up blissful and follow the train of thought. God intends that we live blissfully. What does that even mean? And I have an exercise for you to do later. So if you live alone, you can do this. If you live with 29 children, you can do this. Light some candles on the kitchen table. Light some candles. Put out the plates. Put out napkins. Put 2 raisins on the plate. If you hate raisins, use something else. I was teaching this one time, and the lady said, "I'll put 2 cakes." I said, "Whatever. Put 2 of something." 2 raisins on the plate. Light the candles. And what you're going to do is you're going to have a blissful moment. When's the last time that you actually were even conscious of a raisin? Or, make it something else that you like. How many of you like raisins? Okay, if you like raisins, put a grape or 1 piece of an orange, 2 pieces of an orange. Just take that, sit there with your family, and take the raisin or the piece of orange or whatever it is, a cookie, I don't care, something. And just put that in your mouth and savor that texture, the taste, the sweetness. When's the last time that you consciously had a blissful moment? We just don't, we're not even taught to do this, are we? We're not even taught to have a blissful moment. We're not even taught to even enjoy our food. We're trained to get your food in the fast food, eat it in 3.5 minutes, and get back to work. Right? We're almost trained not to have blissful moments. And working with a lot of Europeans, I've noticed that us Americans, we eat and work. We're eating with our, at our desk, eating food, typing with one hand, eating with the other hand. We're not even conscious that we even ate. Sometimes I think, did I eat dinner? I don't know. Right? We're so lost in our stuff that we're not even conscious of it. That's not how it is in Europe. My European coworkers, they have tea time. They spend an hour at lunch. They take their time. They have a little something and savor that little something, right? We could eat a whole cake and not even know that we did it. I mean, it's true, right? Because we're not conscious. We're not in the blissful moment to really enjoy it. So we need to listen, and we need to kind of declutter our brain and declutter our life. Do you know that clutter actually creates stress? Clutter creates stress. I've helped people before, like that were in a major clutter mess. And I've helped them kind of declutter. And the feeling that they have is just like, oh, thank you so much. If you have a mountain of receipts from the whole year and it's tax time, that's stressful, right? That's stress. I've been to people's house before where they never wash dishes. They put the dirty dishes in the oven, on the chairs, under the table, in the cupboards, on the floor, in the closet. And then I come to their house and they're like, hey, let's have lunch. I'm like, okay. So I eat lunch with them and let me help you with the dishes. There's like 2 plates, right? Let me help you with the dishes. Oh, that'd be great. And then all of a sudden there's 5 plates, 6 plates, 17 bowls, 5 or 6 moldy pots and pans, all these things coming out, right? And I'm washing dishes for like an hour and a half. But after the dishes are all done, how do you think that person felt? Because there's a lifting of stress when we declutter our lives. But not just in a physical way, but mental. That mental clutter is burning our pizza in the wrong areas. We can get into these negative loops, right? We get into these negative loops and they just go round and round and round in our head. And every time it goes around, we're losing more mental energy on that thing. And the real people that matter in our lives are going to lose out. I know people that when I talk to them, they never talk to me. They always talk about somebody else. Have you had this experience? Like, if you were going to talk to me, I come to visit you, and you never talk to me, the whole time you're ranting at the person that you're angry at. You know what I'm saying? So we can lose out on our current relationships, our current passions, because we're letting all these other things crowd it out. Really, Jesus wants us to have joy, love, and kindness in our life and to experience life to the full. Clutter really does drain our energy. Don't be fooled, though. Living with passion does not mean living with pity. Pity, Jesus told a story about these Pharisees that were on their way to church. The first one saw a guy who was wounded, right? And this is pity. He said, oh, poor soul, and then walked on. That's pity, right? I see your pain, so what? It's not my pain, big deal, right? That's pity. The next guy comes along, he walks over, and he says, whoa, that's terrible. You're so bloody and everything. That's terrible. I feel sorry for you. And then he walks away. And that's sympathy, right? I see your pain. I acknowledge that you have pain, but whatever. See you later. Have a good day. The next guy comes along, and he has empathy. And he's like, oh, man, dude, you're all broken and bloody. Oh, I'm going to be sick. And empathy is your pain now becomes my pain, and I can't help you now because I'm so much in pain. Really, some of us should never be nurses, right? Because everything you read in the medical book, you now have it. I used to work at a doctor's office, and people would come in with scabies. Do you know what scabies are? If you don't, you can Google it. But people would come in with scabies, and by the time the day was over, I was sure I had scabies. Like, I didn't have scabies, but I was sure that I had scabies. And I had a big bottle of Quell shampoo at home that kills scabies. And I would go home and do the Quell shampoo because I had the scabies. Right? Empathy does not necessarily mean that I'm going to help you, because I'm going to hear you and see you, and it's going to generate all my own problems. I'm going to burn my pizza on my own problems, because your problem has now reignited my problem, and I'm not going to be able to help you. True compassion is what Jesus said in the story where the guy said, I see you, I feel you, let me help you. And he picked the guy up. He actually did something to help the other person. And that's what Jesus is calling us to do in Matthew 5. Not just see, not just hear, but to do something to help these people in our lives. But we can only do that if we have energy to do it. And if you want energy, you have to use energy. That's just a principle. If you're feeling tired and you get up and you walk around your house twice, you will get energy, right? If you're feeling tired and you can't do anything more than just lift a book, if you just lift that book and do some breathing, all of a sudden you're going to have some energy. If you remember that to have energy, you have to use energy, and you need energy to live with purpose, to do the passions and be productive that you want to do. And that's just a principle. Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly, or that you might have the abundant life. What is the abundant life? What is it? What does the abundant life look like? What does it feel like? The abundant life. Can you put the next slide on? Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Do you think we're living the abundant life? Do you think we're living, quarter of a tank of the abundant life? Half a tank of the abundant life? Are we on a full tank of the abundant life? Probably sometimes we're on empty in the abundant life. Or maybe sometimes we don't even know what the abundant life really is. So I challenge you to think with God, reason with God, and think about what the abundant life really is. What does it mean? What was his intention when he said that he came to give us life and that we could have it more abundantly? Does it mean that we expend our pizza in ways that fulfill our core values? Do you think it means that? Could it mean that? Do we waste our pizza on things that we can't control? Probably not. I mean, we do, but should we? Probably not. Does it mean living with him in the moment for this day to add value to someone's life? Probably. Probably means that. But I would challenge you to go home and think about what the abundant life means to you, and then just do your own little diagnosis. Am I living in the abundant life today? Am I spending my energy on other people's drama? right? We do that a lot, don't we? We spend our energy on other people's drama. And it's probably not going to help us in our core values to do that. Productivity is adding value. And so what value are you adding to life, to work, to home, to church, to friends? What value are you adding? And the value that you added yesterday may be different than the value that you're adding now. But what value are you adding? And that's what Jesus wants us to understand and be conscious of. Remember, at the end of the day, to save some pizza for yourself and God to share. Right? Don't spend so much of your pizza on this life that you're not spending any time with God on what's really important. Jesus said, you did all these things in my name, and yet I didn't know you. Right? So we can do lots of good things, but maybe there's better things that we should do. There's lots of good things that we could do, but maybe there's better things to do. And the primary relationship that I want to spend some energy on every day is with my God, the Creator God. And I want to spend time with Him. So I want to make sure I spend time with Him. And I also want to make sure that I spend a little time on myself. Because Jesus said, if you don't love yourself, you're not going to love other people. If you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to have energy to take care of anybody else? So we need to do a little self-care also, but we need to keep it in balance, right? And not be so absorbed with self, but we can't totally neglect self either. So go home, reread Matthew 5 through 7. It was the first sermon Jesus preached. He preached it so that we would be productively, passionately, powerfully, purposely dedicated to Him. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much for these verses in the Bible, for this sermon that you gave to help us recenter our lives and our relationship with you. Thank you for helping us to recognize where we might be wasting mental, physical, and emotional energy in areas that we can't do anything about. Help us to spend our pizza in ways that will drive our core values and help us to add value to the life that we have to live. In Jesus' name, amen.